Good afternoon, guys, and welcome back to another day of me getting some work done on the 240. The weather's really started to cool down here recently, which I'm super stoked for, so I'm excited to get working on the car today. It's really nice outside. I did a couple things off camera. Well, really, I only did one thing off camera. I removed the bumper and the tail lights, and just to get an idea of what it looks like underneath, just checking around the car for any serious rust damage. And I found a few spots, but still no rot on the chassis so far, just a couple spots with surface rust, nothing too serious. So today I'm going to be mainly focusing on getting the car cleaned out, getting all the dirt and debris and leaves out of the car, getting the surfaces nice and clean, getting it prepped for the interior to go back in. I'm going to start by vacuuming out as much of it as I can, and I'm going to blow it out with some compressed air and start washing it out with some soap, water, and a scrub brush. And we'll just keep on repeating that process until it's super clean in there. So yeah, guys, there's really not much else to say about that. I'm just going to go ahead and get started on this thing. So after a lot of scrubbing, I'm pretty happy with how the interior is. There's a lot of dirt and debris that's not in here anymore. It definitely smells a lot better. And there was like mold and stuff growing on some of the seam sealer that is gone now. So I think we're in a much better place for getting the interior back together. While going through it, I did find a couple rust spots, so I'm gonna go over those with you guys real quick. So obviously all 240s have a little bit of rust here in the trunk. This trunk is actually not as bad as most, so I should just be able to like remove this seam sealer, clean up the rust, throw some primer over it, and re-seam seal it. I'll probably do something similar to the bottom side of the trunk as well. So as you guys can see, there was a hole ripped in the floorboard at one point, and that just allowed water to get in, and over time this whole area has just sort of gotten rusty. So I'm gonna have to take up some of the sound deadening around here to make sure there's no rust underneath it. Then I'm gonna have to treat it. Thankfully it's just surface rust, so just treat it, primer it, and we'll be good to go there. I'll probably knock that hole shut and weld it together so it doesn't continue to rust in the future. Going around to the other side, I found a bubble here on my sound deadening, and there was a little bit of rust here. Looks like that rust is from water seeping through this seam right here. So again, I'm going to have to remove this sound deadening, make sure there's no more rust underneath it. Probably just put some seam sealer over this seam here after it's cleaned up and primered and everything. So it's going to be kind of impossible for me to show you guys, but on all four corners underneath, like inside the rocker panel, there's rust. Yeah, it's kind of impossible for me to get a good angle on it. There's surface rust down here and on that corner and the front corners as well. It's kind of impossible for me to really get to that rust and treat it properly, but the reason why those spots were rusting is because that's right around where the drain is for the sunroof, and since there was no seal on the sunroof, there was just a lot more water going down there than there normally would. So I'm going to do my best to treat it, even though I can't really reach it that well. I'm just going to try to kill the rust and spray it off with some fresh water and maybe get some primer over it. But really the solve for this is to just reduce the water going to that area. So once I get a good sunroof on there with a good seal, there really won't be any more water going down those drains anymore. So yeah, that's going to be my solution for that. But thankfully, going through the rest of the car, there's no rot anywhere, just a couple spots with surface rust. So I really lucked out there. So yeah, let's go ahead and get this rust taken care of, and then we can move on to getting that interior finished. Alright, so I've peeled back the sound deadening here, and thankfully the rust hasn't really spread that far. And it's just, like I said, it's just surface rust, so should be pretty easy fix. I hammered the hole down a little bit. There's still a little bit of a gap here, but it shouldn't be a problem to go ahead and weld this back into place once it's all cleaned up. I go ahead and weld this shut. I know it still looks pretty rusty, but I'll make it work. I'll go ahead and get it taken care of. The last thing I need to address in here, other than the rust, is this seam here around the trans tunnel. As you can see, it was separating from when I hammered the trans out. So I'm going to go ahead and hammer this seam back down flat and do some stitch welds on here just to make sure everything is nice and rigid. I finished stitch welding the front here. Got all the rust taken care of right here, and treated the rust on that side as well. As for inside these rocker panels, I couldn't really get to them, but I did my best to try to clean them up as much as possible and then primered them. So I'm pretty happy with where the inside of the car is right now. Obviously, I would love to do like a full resto on this car and stitch weld everything and paint the whole interior, but honestly, I don't have the resources or the space to really do that out here in the carport. Maybe in the future when the garage is done, on the next build, I'll be going crazy like that, but for now, I'm pretty happy with where the interior is. I've got the rust taken care of. I've got everything cleaned up really well. It smells a lot better in there. Tomorrow, we're going to focus on installing stuff back on the inside of the car. We're going to be installing the chassis harness, the accessories, the carpet, basically the full interior. We're going to be focusing on cleaning up everything and getting it back in the car and getting the interior sorted out. But I'm beat for today, guys. Been working all day. I'm going to have to pick up on this video tomorrow.